Now or Never show. We are so excited today to welcome our audience and welcome my guest. Appreciate having Taylor Calhoon on air, an entertainment band manager and professional actress. Welcome, Taylor. Appreciate having you today.
Thank you, Kim. I am so excited to be here. I'm excited to talk to you and see what we got going on today.
Yes, and I am interested to dive into about your band management. I've never been a band manager before. Can you tell me about what it's like to be a band manager for Symmetrical Defiance and how your performances go? Did they go as planned?
It depends on the day. There's always a hiccup somewhere. There's show days so insane. So there's always something that happens where things just don't quite go off as planned. But it's all what you do with it and how you move with those hiccups. We kind of look at them as like curveballs, really. They're not really hiccups. We're just like, okay, so how can I play without that? How can I make this work? How can we band together and fix all this? And sometimes times don't go as planned. Sometimes other acts don't show up on time. So it's really just a matter of negotiating with people and kind of standing firm as well in your beliefs of where you stand as a band and where you're booked and where you're scheduled.
And what's a job description like being a band manager for a heavy metal band?
Well, there's your typical description, and then there's what I do. I kind of have my hands involved in everything. Typical managers just kind of book, do the kind of backdoor stuff, and they don't go to shows. They don't deal with any of that stuff. That's up to the band and the crew that they send. Um, Me, on the other hand, I'm out there in the field and I'm in everybody's face and I'm marketing. So it really is just like being very social with people, making sure your presence is known, marketing your band constantly, no matter what I'm doing. I'm always talking about the band. Um, Making connections with venue owners, other bands, um, possibly other agencies, stuff like that, and trying to get yourself out there as much as you can and making yourself accessible for the right people in your platform. So it's a lot of time navigating and marketing, pretty much talking.
I understand in being in the entertainment business, there's a lot of moving components, a lot of recipe flops, and a lot of ingredients in that mix. Can you tell me about what the story would be behind how you got started in as being a band manager and a little bit about the dynamics and the personality of the band?
Absolutely. So I actually was friends with the drummer before I even knew anybody else in the band. And he came to me one day and he goes, Tay, we're looking for somebody that understands business. And he goes, and I understand you understand business. You're really good at that. He goes, we need a merch girl. We need somebody that understands how things are moving through our market and blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, man, I'll come and I'll help you out. So I did that with them for a couple of months. We did a festival actually, and I wound up selling like almost 3 grand worth of merch in like 8 hours. And it was just insane, like this astronomical amount that they had never seen. And they're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I know how to market with people and talk with
Yeah.
people and, appeal to people. It's a skill that you have as a retailer. And went a couple of months and I started kind of dipping my toe into things, figuring stuff out because I was intrigued. I wanted to learn. I didn't want to go this far. And then uh one night they just looked at me and they're like, you already do the work. You keep doing more and more, so we might as well make you management and give you the reins. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just kind of went from there and have been learning it as I go and kind of been taking it as my own musical craft, you know.
You're in Central New York. What was it like growing up in Central New York? I'm familiar with it because I grew up in a little town called Cohoes. That's where I'm from. What
Okay.
was it like being in Central New York as a kid?
as you know, in central New York, there's either a lot going on or nothing going on at all. So depending on the season, you could have a lot to do or nothing to do. In the winter, it's pretty boring. There's really not a lot going on. If you live close enough to friends, that's awesome. But if you happen to live in the country, then that's kind of eh. But other than that, I just kind of made sure that I involved myself in music at a young age and kind of made that a big part of me growing up. And was that I was that person that was like, where's Taylor in a room listening to ACDC or, something like that. And I don't know. That was pretty much my driving force, at least. Everybody else was partying and I was like, have you heard this new album?
Did you hear about ACDC in your childhood, or did you listen to that on the tapes? Tell me about that experience.
So growing up, my parents are actually older. I was adopted. So my parents are in their like 60s and 70s now. Um, my mom actually, I just lost my mom. She just recently passed not that long ago. She was 69. So that kind of gives you an idea of like what generation I was like raised up in. So I grew up on
I
like
understand.
Arlo Guthrie, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, ACDC, a lot of country influences in my house. My dad was a big country person. So I was kind of like into the older, like classic rock. And then as I grew up, probably in my teens, is when I kind of shifted to metal because I started discovering like I remember hearing Godsmack on the radio for the first time, and I was like, "What's that?" And then that's not even heavy, but I was just like, "All right, I want more. Like, how deep does this rabbit hole go?" And after that, that was it.
My condolences to you and your family. I understand because I lost my sister. It's not a happy time, and I get it going through the motions and having to try to not cry, but you're really just crying. And I have a lot of compassion for that. And I'll keep you in my prayers with that. I understand you have worked with Matt Peters
Yes.
and you've worked with Sean Ubeli. How can you tell me how you got involved in being an independent filmmaking and getting involved with big players like Matt Peters and Sean Ubeli, and how you got that chance and what you took away from that?
So it actually kind of comes full circle. It does go back to the band. Um, there was a message. I started actually with my first film was with Luca, which was My Brother Came with Chris Fiore. I was in My Brother Came 1 2. Sorry, that's tongue twister for me. Um, and it started there. And they were like, "Hey, he's looking for some extras. We need some help." And I was like, "All right, whatever. I'll come check it out. This really isn't something I was interested in." And then it kind of like snowballed from there. And then I did Clark County 3, which hasn't been released yet with Sean Euclid. And then Sean passed my name over to Matt Peters, and it snowballed from there. And then I did a small independent project that I can't really talk about um,
Yeah.
with Ron Bonk. So I've kind of it's nice because in the past like year or so, I've just kind of been spread all over the map with all of these like
Mhm.
movie makers, and like it's just insane how it's all full circle. Sterling Entertainment, like I did a connection film with Matt Angel. Matt Peters directed Axe Grinder 666 that just released March 3rd, and that's actually produced by Sterling Entertainment. So
Very,
it's cool.
very interesting. A day to day in production for our audience. It's long days and long hours. Can you tell me a little bit about that and elaborate on what goes into being on set?
So typically, depending on what's expected of your scene, there's a lot of thought process that goes into it, which a lot of people don't think about. They think it's just coming, being the character, saying your lines, and then going home. But there's so much thought that goes into it because you're like, oh my God, how was I laying that last scene? How was my foot position? Like, or like let's say I stop filming and then I go home and then I come back and it's like, oh, was I was I wearing earrings? Did I lose the earring yet? Like I started the earring. Did I lose the earring yet? and it's continuity is the hardest thing, I want to say. And then also to like, people think it's easy being an independent film actor, which it kind of is, but it isn't at the same time, because we don't have these big elaborate budgets. So a lot of the things that you see in these films are us doing it, our own stunts. Sometimes we don't have money for props. Sometimes the items you see are actual axes and stuff. And so we have to be really careful with how we interact with each other, what we do. It's intense, but it's a lot of fun, and it's hard work. It's hard work. It's long days, a lot of repeating yourself. You'll say the same line over and over again. Get used to hearing perfect. Do it again, because that is the most famous line on set.
Yes, and that's a really good point with the props and things. And I find myself understanding and having an entertainment company that there's budgets, and there's big ultra budgets for the majors, and there's shoestring budgets for the independent filmmakers, and they do the best that they can with what they have to work with. And it's not all smoke and mirrors. In reality, there's things that go wrong. There's things on set that you got to do a do-over on because it didn't go as planned. Can you think about a time when you had your band touring or performing, and we'll get into more of that after commercial break, but can you think about a time that your band, something didn't go as planned, or it was an embarrassing moment? Can you tell me about that?
Oh, this situation, it stresses me out, but it's a perfect one. Okay, so I am not musically inclined at all. I'm just a person that knows business, likes music, you know what I mean? Like, I understand what people like, kind of thing. So we did this show at the Fulton VFW, and my guitarist, Xavier, looks at me and he goes, "Tay, plug in my head." So I was like, "Okay, no problem." So I plugged his head into the wall, which is bad. You cannot plug a head into what's called
Oh
dirty
my
power.
goodness.
So you have to plug it into an adapter. So I plugged it into the wall. He turns the head on. Nothing comes out. No sound. Just dead air. You hear a pop and dead air. So literally the entire venue, it felt like it turned cold. Cold. The out of the venue, and I whip around and I'm like, "What just happened?" And he goes, "I don't know. My head just died. The tubes just went." And I'm like, "What do you mean the tubes went?" He's like, "Well, I don't know, but I think the tubes went." So I'm panicking and I'm like, "Oh no, we can't play. We were gonna sound check. We can't play." So I'm running around trying to figure out what to do. And I run outside, and our brothers from Agnikai actually just cleared the stage. So I run out and I'm like, "Who loves me?" in the parking lot with a bunch of people in this parking lot. My hands are up. I'm like, "Who loves me?" And they all turn and they look at me and they go, "Yeah, why? What do you need?" And I'm like, "I need a head." And I'm like, "Wait." I'm like, a guitar head. Well, because I need a guitar head. Like, I didn't realize how it came out. I was just panicking. So I was like, "There's 40 guys out here. I got to be really careful about how I can't just run out a door in Fulton and scream that." Um, but yeah, Agna Kai came out and they saved us and they let us borrow their head and we were able to play the show. And I mean, that was really one of the moments where I was just like, or the tornado we got caught in. We got caught in a tornado like 2 years practically. We did a festival and this complete torrential downpour, like tent collapse, the whole 9 yards. It was absolutely fun, but we managed it.
Absolutely, and I can appreciate that. I don't know that much about playing and on the guitar. I only know you have that pick and you got to press the buttons. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've learned in managing a band about instruments?
So I've learned a lot of like drum tuning and stuff like that, which is honestly probably one of the hardest things because drums don't tune the same way other instruments tune. They're not on the same scale. So drum tuning is really difficult. You have to tune them a certain way. Um, I've learned how to run sound. I've learned how to engineer sound as well. I've started learning mixing, mastering. Um, I'm just really trying to learn every aspect of the business. We try to do our own shirts. Everything we do is in-house DIY. We don't want a label. We don't need a label. And I know that sounds bad, but we want to do this on our own. We are our own label. That's why we're doing it the way we do it. That's why we have management. That's why we have our own recording studio. And I mean, what else can we do at that point?
That's amazing. And going through and booking bands, what goes into that? And do you travel to different places in the country, or do you stay in central New York and perform? Can you elaborate on that as well?
So the booking process, it all depends on if we are hosting or if we are just jumping on a bill with somebody. Usually it's us jumping on a bill because hosting opportunities around our area are scarce. We do get a couple of headlining outfits, but our most recent was the Lost Horizon, and that wasn't really hosted by us. I ran a couple of shows start to finish myself, but we don't get a lot of those opportunities. That's a whole nother mess. But booking usually goes, another band reaches out and they go, hey, what are you doing on such and such date? And then we're like, oh no, we're free. Why? What's going on? Hey, are you interested in going to blah blah blah? And we're like, oh, okay, what's the details? So that's basically when we say that, it's code to each other, like, okay, date, time, load in, who's playing, ticket prices, is there pay, like, is there door pay, is it a 50-50 split, like what's the situation, do we have security, what do we need to bring, blah blah blah, do we need gear, do we need sound, do we need tables? So at that point it kind of like, once we accept a gig, it all unravels, if that makes sense. We also do travel around a lot. We go to Pennsylvania, we're trying to get Connecticut, I'm looking to get us into New York City as well. I have kind of talks in New York City, there's no guarantees yet. We have shows all over pretty much Eastern New York.
What size audience do you generally have when the band is playing? Can it be a couple of people, a couple hundred, thousands, millions? What generally do you have for an audience?
Typically a couple hundred, but that also depends on the other bands that we're playing with. It depends on the draw. Like if I booked an ideal show, like right out of the gate, to know that I would draw perfectly, I would take us, I would take Otherworldly Entity, I would take probably Alloy Rain, which we're playing with those two shortly. I would take there's so many heavy hitters, but I would try to fill the bill. Gainer, you know, I would try to fill the house. I would basically be like, okay, these guys bring 200 people, these guys bring 300 people, these guys bring do, and try to blow out a house. So we could, or we could, depending on where we go, like if we break new ground in Amsterdam, we might get a fan or no fans, but we'll walk away with new ones. So that's what matters. I came with none, but I left with more.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get more into the Now or Never show with Taylor Calhoun. It's amazing conversations that we're having right now. Welcome back to the Now or Never show. If you're just joining us, we're just talking to the amazing Taylor Calhoon. And Taylor is a band manager and an actress, entertainment professional. It's super cool. It's on a Saturday. We're enjoying our lives, just chatting about amazing performances in the world. Taylor, can you tell me about what it is you did as a kid? What did you do it for fun in Rome?
I did a lot of outdoor stuff. I was very like active in nature, a lot of hiking, camping, fishing, stuff like that, gardening, which funny to hear coming from, metalheads. That's just a joke. Metalheads aren't mean. They're teddy bears. But it's funny to hear like, oh, she likes the garden. I'm like, listen, you should see my tomatoes. Um, I like doing stuff like that. I love music. Music was a huge thing. I was always on the music scene. As soon as I was able to start, like, because my parents didn't really want me to go into shows. They were like, they're not safe. So as soon as I was able to like break free and go to shows, I was never home. I was finding any local show that I could get into. I'm like 18, 16 over, like, here we go. Come
Yes.
on. You know, after that, it was just, I I went everywhere I could go. I moved around to follow shows, went to different states to experience different scenes. It's always been a huge part of me.
What is your favorite genre of music?
It definitely has to be rock or metal. I've always leaned more towards the heavier stuff. Um, but I literally listen to everything. Like I blow people's minds when they find out I'm a huge fan of Richie Valens. They're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Listen, I love La Bamba, and if you put it on at any moment, I will scream it at the top of my lungs with no issues." Like I love jazz, classical music, everything.
That's amazing. Yeah, I we could go back to those days. And did you listen to something called an 8 track? Do you know what those are?
I know what they are.
Okay.
I did not get to listen to one. I never had one in the house. I've seen proof of them. Like I know they existed, but I unfortunately was in that like hit or miss era. I was born in '93, so I kind of you either had one or you did at that point. And unfortunately, we did not. But I did. I know about cassettes. I know about like blowing into your Sega cartridge because the thing won't load.
For us old
Dial-up.
people, I learned how to get the tape out of the 8 track player in the car as we were driving down out throughout the silos and the chickens and the hens in upstate New York. We would listen to 8 tracks, and we would have to weed through and take the tapes out because they would eat the tapes in the car, and we had no air conditioning back then.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yes. In the future, how do you see your projects going? What's on your bucket list that you haven't done?
Um, I definitely want to open my own management company. That's a big thing for me. I would like to do this full time and make this my career because honestly, the big reason why I started doing what I do is and I'm going to make a lot of people mad with this statement, so I apologize, but I hate how the music industry is ran. It is so greedy. It is narcissistic. It is very dog eat dog world, and it really doesn't have to be like that. There's enough room for everybody. There's enough room. There's thousands, millions, millions, billions of fans out there. Why do we need to compete with each other? Why do we need to be so cutthroat? And I want to be a company that shares resources, that wants to build actual connection with other artists that are interested in the same thing. I'm so sick and tired of how this industry is ran. It's nauseating. So I'm really stepping into it to change it.
I agree with you. And Lady Gaga took a risk with what I asked the entertainment industry to do. there's plenty of people in the world that feel that it has to be smoke and mirrors, powder and paint all the time. And we can't be real people. And I saw a disturbing article with Lady Gaga saying that there was no excuse about her chapstick, her chapped lips, rather. And she was performing a scene in performing a at the Oscars with no makeup on. And that really just came from me. I asked the industry to start getting a little bit real so that we could treat and teach messages that it doesn't have to be you're beautiful all the time, you're a size zero. This entertainment industry has to start getting a little bit more realistic with what they're doing. So I definitely agree with you. It doesn't have to be run with this greedy society who's wearing the Calvin Klein dresses and the Kate Spade accessories, and we're rocking the runway with the best, most expensive jewelry and thousands of dollars in powder and paint. We got to be real. So I definitely agree with you. What would you tell our audience, or if there were girls listening right now that wanted to become models or become a performer, what messages would you have for them regarding getting into the performance realm and entertainment world?
So my biggest message, especially to women, is, and again, I'm gonna make some people mad. I apologize. But I speak the truth in the industry. Women are unfortunately looked at differently. We have been for years. It's gone back to old Hollywood. We've always been looked at differently. And unfortunately, with that being said, we have to have bigger cojones than the men that sit at the same table as us. So when we sit down, you need to command that room and be like, listen, you called me here. You want me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm willing to do. And don't budge. You are an artist. You are a performer. And some people are going to be like, well, she's a diva. You can handle it with pride and class. You don't have to be mean about it. But do stand firm. I don't push on people. I don't tolerate that. People will be like, well, you're gonna. I'm like, excuse you? No, I'm a person, not a prop. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm not gonna look any type of way.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a character that already looks the way I look, then that's awesome. But if you're expecting me to hurt myself or put myself in jeopardy, you don't have to do that unless that's something you want to. Don't don't be pushed, because this can, and I'm not saying it's happened to me, but I do know this
Yes.
industry can be pushed. I can see where it can happen, because it's like I'm trying to get that perfect shot, or I'm trying to portray this scene, or I'm trying to make you look this way because honey, sex sells. Like, don't do what you don't want to do. Do
Boundaries are
your
definitely important. And I was just telling my healthcare provider the other day that I have to learn boundaries. And some of these people in our audience think that they have to exceed, they have to drive the Mercedes, they have to look the part. And that may not be necessarily what the world is looking for. They may be looking for somebody with ripped jeans that looks grubby to cast them in a film. And it just, can you think of about a time when you auditioned for a film and what you thought they may have wanted, but they wanted something different? Can you tell me about that?
Unfortunately, no, I can't tell you about auditioning for a film, because kind of all my films just kind of, this sounds bad, but they kind of fell into my lap. It was just kind of like people reached out to me, or they passed me along to other people. Um, But it was, for me, building my characters at least, was a lot of communication with the director. The only one I didn't really have that communication opportunity with was Chris Fiore and My Brother Kane 1 and 2, because I had never worked with him before. I didn't know him. It was so last minute. But Sean Ubley and Matt Peters, I had known them prior to working with them. So I was able to be like, okay, how do you want this sniper to look? Because I played a sniper in Clark County 3. So we built this character together. So the director and I came together and we're like, this is now how the sniper looks. Because I want to meet you and build your vision with you,
Yes.
but also kind of build myself into that, because I have to play it, or whoever it is, I have to play that person. So I want to make sure I'm comfortable playing that person and I'm in something that I can wear, move around in, blah, blah, blah. So I like to personally build a person with my director, because then we're both happy. Then it can't be like, why does she have purple hair? Well, I don't know. I thought she'd look good with purple hair. No, she's supposed to have, well, now she's got purple hair, you know.
Absolutely and definitely. If you could work with any person in the entertainment world, who would it be?
Quentin Tarantino.
Why?
There's just something about that man. Like, listen, his movies are so just sick. I know, it's just the things that that man thinks of should be illegal, and it's so well executed, and it's just the right amount of just grunge and in your face. And with me being mainly in the horror industry as well, it's kind of right up my alley, and I'm like, that'd kind of be my shtick.
Some people don't realize what we can do here at All Consuming Filming and the Now or Never show. You may get your dreams someday to work with that person. And for me, it was a person by the name of Ryan Gosling. And then I went into a business relationship with a man that was in a movie with Ryan Gosling, and I loved his Notebook performance, and he just has a special place in my heart. So we can get dreams done at some point in time. What
I like that.
what projects would you like to do that you've never done before? That what kind of, you mentioned you wanted to run a management label, but what projects specifically would you want in your company? If you were to start a company right now, what kind of projects would you look for?
So, as far as like building it, as far as like department wise, are you saying? Like, if I were to put all these projects in to build this company?
Yes.
Okay.
What would be an example of a project that you would want to work
So,
on?
I would definitely need to work on getting like merchandising, getting the actual physical merchandising department going, because if I did that, that would save me so much time and energy. Merch is 95% of the game. I would also like to kind of like
Like
hire a team.
hats and tote bags and
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
stuff like that.
Understood.
And I'd like to hire like a street marketing team, a team specifically to go out in the street and actually market us, because that's where half of our clientele comes from, if you think about it. Like, if you don't hit social media and you hit the streets, that's the other half.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I would make sure I had a marketing department and a merchandising department, and that's where I would probably dump most of my resources in, because if I could take those two things off of me, I can handle everything else. Um, I can handle looking at other artists, uh, doing the talent scout thing. We actually just signed a young gentleman to our label not that long ago, and we're working on starting up his career and trying to take him along with us and trying to build like our own little family that we could build shows off of and eventually just run circuits off of ourselves, and we won't need to really bounce too far out and just run tours constantly off of our own label.
We have about 5 minutes left. Can you tell me about how one would book your band and book you for future projects?
Okay, so for our band, we actually are on Facebook. That's probably the easiest way. You can message us on both. I have Symmetrical Defiance, just straight up Symmetrical Defiance on Facebook. That's the band page. If you reach out to Symmetrical Defiance Management and Booking, you can get a hold of me. You'll be speaking to me and be able to get all the details as far as pricing, scheduling, all that stuff. Also, for me, you can reach out to me on Facebook as well. It's under Taylor Calhoon. And it has actually the profile picture for my bio is the same. So the picture link to the video for this is the same as that. And Facebook's pretty much the easiest way for all of us. We have so many different platforms. We needed to find one local area to put it all together.
And where will we see Symmetrical Defiance's music?
So we're on all major music platforms. You can find us on Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, YouTube, any of that. Also, we have a link tree. If you go to linktree /JOSHUAFRANCHI, that has all of our social media and our contacts, and also all of our music platforms and our digital EP.
And to book you, do you have an agent or you're running your own?
I am my own agent.
Okay, perfect.
I decided, I was like, I'm just going to bundle us all together for now because I can't do this separate.
You said the best way to reach you is through Facebook, correct?
Yes, my Facebook name is the same as the interview name. It's Taylor Calhoun. I do want to let them know if they do want to check out Symmetrical Defiance, they can see us live June 24th at the Pit at the L. Tickets are available at the L Live. That's where Otherworldly Entity of Stantia, Bound and Quartered, and Symmetrical Defiance are playing. Also, you can catch us April 22nd, Stanford Clock Tower at 37 Prospect Street in Amsterdam. Tickets are available on our Facebook, so hit us up on Symmetrical Defiance is Facebook, or you can hit up Alloy Rain's Facebook, and it's Alloy Rains and Friends Clock Tower event.
Thank you so much, Taylor. And for our audience, you're going to want to catch that show. It's a do not miss. It's awesome. I appreciate your time, and I know it's valuable for coming on the Now or Never show. Rare moment. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Straight reality. Don't judge me unless you can walk in my shoes. I carry tissues in my pockets to deal with the blues. For a person to win, one must lose. For a person to succeed, one must choose. Focus on good news, one of my rules. Always cool. You can't stop us, no matter what you do. You can't stop us, no matter what you try. You can't stop us, no matter what you say. You can't stop us, it's time to testify. You can't stop us, no matter what you do. You can't stop us, no matter what you try. You can't stop us, no matter what you say. You can't stop us, what's God like the sky. If you can dream it, you can live it. That's my motto, let me give it. Coming tighter than my fitted when I spit it. You better be ready, better get ready, better stay ready. Every day them seats to pray for people, women away when the scene to be no way. Every day in no ways, giving praise. Hallelujah, giving praise. Always crunch time. It's God's time to shine, shine, shine. You can't stop us, no matter what you do. You can't stop us, no matter what you try. You can't stop us, no matter what you say. You can't stop us, it's time to testify. You can't stop us, no matter what you do. You can't stop us, no matter what you try. You can't stop us, no matter what you say. You can't stop us, what's God crack the sky.